Hello and welcome to another week. We're glad to have you with us today. We're talking again today with Darren Newman, and we've got some exciting announcements and things to share with you today. But first of all, Dr. Newman, hello, and how you doing this week?
Good to see you, my brother. I'm doing fine. How about you? You doing
I'm
all
doing
right?
well. Doing well.
Yeah,
Thanks for
good,
asking.
good, good. It's
Yeah.
great to see you.
It'll be a good week this week. I know we've teased over lunch or over a cup of coffee about what we might discuss this week. We've kicked around some thoughts, and I'm very excited about the subject matter that you brought up. And if it goes that way today, I think it'll be
Yeah, I was thinking
great.
about that too. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I thought we might start today with talking about a new title. This is an evolving project for you. I know your heart, your passion is to reach people with a message that can change them, fulfill them, give them a great experience in their life. And so we have a new title for the broadcast for part of the mission. And won't you share a little bit about what your vision is there and what has come about in your
I,
recent thoughts.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I toyed around with this idea of what to call things. As we were sharing on our many lunches, I've always been bad at titles. I think that's my worst thing. I never do know what to call anything once I get it done. Whether it be just a short piece I write or even when I've done my work in education, I've always wondered what to call anything. But I, uh, I came across this idea of calling the podcast instead of just letting it be Darren Newman Podcast, call it the Darren Newman Dialogues. Um, and so that goes down to um, it goes down to my history and my love for this idea that comes away from Plato, and I go all the way back to the master himself on this one. Uh, he wrote, as a lot of people know, he wrote the collection of his works is called the Dialogues, the Dialogues, and that goes down to a um, a philosophy of life, a philosophy of thinking, a philosophy of corresponding one to the other that um, his teacher Socrates always practiced. And it's a beautiful thought that when two people or more are discussing great ideas or discussing themes of life or trying to reach wisdom, really, and our correspondence one with the other, in that in that process of dialoguing, which means dia being, not a monologue, which is just somebody up there, excuse my expression, just talking, just sort of yapping, whatever. I'm not saying that everybody that talks in a monologue yaps, but anyway, but but to, to speak just one-sidedly, of course, is a monologue, and nobody likes. Unless nobody likes to be talked at. We like to be talked with, right? And that was in the back of Plato's mind, I think, that through and by the dialogue, and this is the key, through and by a dialogue between two people who honestly are friends or who are trying to come together to seek wisdom. They don't always have to have the same ideas, but they come to that meeting point of talking, of discussing things, of just being engaging, of engaging with one another. Then truth comes in to the scene, and
Yeah,
that's a beautiful thought to me.
yeah,
I love that thought. It goes back to a lot of our relationships. When you're getting to know someone, getting to know who they are, uh, it's not a monologue. Nobody likes to sit across from somebody that just keeps talking your head off, and you can't even get a word in edgewise. Can't say but or and, and then they just keep on talking. Very rude, to say the least, and very boring
hmm
because all you're hearing is just about them. Who, so the dialogue is a is a beautiful relational tool to get to the truth. And when I first understood that, I never could understand when I first started reading, Plato's dialogues. I thought, why is everybody always talking around? And then, as it dawned on me that this has been a great tradition, and what he's trying to do is show the process of achieving wisdom. And the way it comes about is that we really don't have a corner on the market on wisdom. Socrates would always teach that. The point of Socrates' wisdom, as he explains, was that he figured out that he was the one who didn't know. I mean, that comes out of, I know I'm kind of going around the around the way on this one, but this comes from a long history, and it's a beautiful story. In Socrates' life, he was actually wanting um, to know wisdom. He was a lover of wisdom. He wanted to figure out what is the best life for human beings to lead, and it went down to this idea that we could actually think our way through life. I mean, it doesn't sound like that's a momentous thing, but I think a lot of people might forget about it. But you have to really do life greatly. You've got to think your way through it. If you don't think your way through it, you're just going to react. And if you're just simply having a knee-jerk reaction to life, you're not going to go anywhere. I mean, you have to think, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
You got to think about these things. And if you don't give any thought to it, then you're just going to well, you're just going to kind of be shallow. You're not really considering things.
Mm-hmm.
So our greatest gift of us, of course, is or to us, is our way of thinking. That's what makes us special as a species, that we think very deeply. Everything that we are comes from that. We consider our ways. And so Socrates' great friend called Caravan, he went to see the Oracle of Delphi. I'm always struggling with these names. I know that people think, what kind of name is that? But it was the name of his friend, and he went to see the Oracle of Delphi, who incidentally had above her temple, "Know thyself," which was a quote from Thales. And he went in and he gave, you had to give in support, to see the oracle. She was a priestess of Apollo, and she said to Caravan that Socrates indeed was the wisest. So the word got back to Socrates, and he became bothered by this. And to make a long story short, he thought, I'm a lover of wisdom. I'm not the possessor of wisdom. And so what he figured out by dialogue, check this out, this is so interesting. He decides he'll try to figure this out by trying to spark up dialogues with people. And he would go to them with this question, what is wisdom? It's a great question, isn't it? What is wisdom? And so the answers always came back. And what he found out, I think, is that they turned it not into a dialogue, but into a monologue. And the more they talked, the more he understood that they didn't know at all what they were talking about. Right? And so it clicks in. He's the wisest because he's the one who knows that he does not have wisdom. But he is a questioner. He is a desire. He is a pursuer. He is a lover of wisdom. There's not going to be an artist who says, I have captured all of art. But we love beauty. We desire beauty. And so through and by this, then I want to talk. I want to flesh out these ideas with everybody that's listening. And I know we've shared many times, many great discussions just over lunch or any time that we meet, that we're talking. And that's where truth is coming into the midst of us. We discover things. And wouldn't that be a wonderful way to approach life? And I thought, then it dawned on me, and I thought, my love of Plato, because I did my studies in Plato for my doctorate, my PhD. I wrote on Plato. I studied Plato. Um, it was my introduction to philosophy. He taught me philosophy. I mean, that sounds kind of weird, but I would read his works, and I just became, it just became very inspirational. Then it's thrown by the dialogue. That's the reason, interestingly enough, not to sound academic, but that's the reason that in the dialogues you really don't ever come to an answer.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. You don't ever really come to the end of it.
Yeah.
It's always Socrates going off in another way, or somebody walks off and he says, well, wait, we've still got more to talk about, and they want it to, it's like, to be that clear cut answer. But isn't that everything in life? I mean, how do you capture in one discussion, excuse me, love? How do you capture in one discussion life? How do you discover in one speech uh, wisdom? That's the reason it's called Darren Newman Dialogues.
I
Because
think
I
it's
want to,
fabulous. When you shared it with me, I was really, really moved by it because, well, first of all, I think it captures who you are as being someone who desires truth. You desire to see good conversation. And I'm a very practical person, so I'm always thinking application. And I think, wow, couldn't the world use more dialogue right now? Couldn't the world use less
mm,
speech and more open, respectful dialogue to get to the truth and to learn together and to respect one another's opinions. I just think that's fabulous, and I think it's a great move, and I'm excited to
I
share
appreciate
that
that. Thank you.
with
Yeah.
all of our listeners, and I hope they embrace that and look forward to how we grow that over time. So
Yeah,
thanks,
yeah.
thanks for
I appreciate you saying that. I I I I agree with that wholeheartedly, and that might be a reason why, part of the purpose of this is to teach us how, or to talk about, not to teach. I mean, I am a teacher and a minister too, but I don't have all of the answers. I mean, I've got some insights because I've lived,
yeah.
and I've studied and I've learned from others. And it's not to devalue that, but I think it was said, and I love this statement: if your dreams that you have for your life, and I forget who said this, but I'm going to repeat it, so I'll give them credit. um, if your dreams that you have for your life could be achieved in one lifetime, your dreams are too small.
Hmm. Wow.
Listen to that. If your dreams that you have for your life could be achieved in any one lifetime, then your dreams are too small. And if you think that you can get to all of it in a lifetime, then it's not big enough, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's so beautiful, but it doesn't mean that we stop in the process. Though we stop because I can't achieve it. Do I stop? Do I stop trying? And that's the one thing that we cannot do. And when you said it, like, said very adequately and excellently, that is so needed in our society. And aren't we so insulated? Like, others don't have any feelings, others don't have anything to offer to us, others don't. I mean, there's something very beautiful about that we're coming together. Now, it does not limit in any way, nor lessen in any way our impact, our contribution. But it's like the words, goes back to Walt Whitman. You know, the 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 book of life, the poem of life. I forget how he says it. The play of life, I think, goes on, and you will contribute a verse. Listen to that line. That was used in Dead Poets Society, the famous movie with Robin Williams, which, it was a fabulous movie. I love. That's one of my top movies of all time, Dead Poets Society, and then he finishes the line in the movie, "What will your verse be?" That's such a line, isn't it?
Yeah.
The play of life goes on, and you will contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
Hmm.
So here it is. You're not going to get to the end of the play. you're not the whole play.
Right.
You personally are not the whole play, man. So that humbles you, but you have a beautiful part to play. You've got a verse that you're going to contribute, and in the words of Henry Longfellow, in The Path of Life, it was a famous poem in the 19th century. I think it might. I think he. I'm not sure the date he. I started to say the date, but he calls it the path of life, and he said that your pathway is such a way that you can see the footprints of another. Well, you will leave your footprints behind so that some wayward person coming on after you will see your footprints and will know the way. Isn't that beautiful?
It is very much so.
That's part of the dialogue, isn't it?
It
I
is.
don't hold all the answers, but I want to explore this dialogue. So and talk. So let's do that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You mentioned it before, how we're all connected and how we're all connected to creation and we're all connected to each other. And so together as a community, as a body, as a collection, we can grow together. There's much to learn from each other.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. So the topic for today, you've been thinking about something to share with us today. What's on your mind?
Yes, yes, I was thinking about this, and I again, I don't have all the answers on it, but it's something very precious to me. So I, I I actually keep these around, and I brought these onto the desk here. Um, I collect leaves. um, not not every not each and every leaf I ever find, but I found these couple of leaves. Now that is a red oak leaf, and
Mhm.
this is a chestnut oak, which came from the woods. I figured this is like show and tell here today. I'm not trying to be simple-minded, but it got me thinking about a great thinker said, and we've discovered this. So I'm going on these findings that when when you look at a tree, and in wintertime in the northern hemisphere, well, even in the southern hemisphere too, but especially in our northern hemisphere in North America, we always will see the leaves falling in autumn. What the trees are doing, interestingly enough, is that what we're finding out is that we always thought that, I guess I always thought when I mean, for years, I just thought the leaves kind of went through this process of kind of like, because of the colder weather, they kind of, they just kind of rot or something. They just kind of dry up and fall off, I guess. I don't know what I was thinking. Interestingly enough, the trees are cutting the leaves off of themselves. Now, that might be common knowledge to a lot of people that are listening to me, but it was news to me, at least this thought that that tree is aware, and so it cuts off the leaves in order that it may live through the winter time. It draws in its resources so that when the springtime comes, it'll grow forth again. It can grow taller, uh, and sturdier. Its roots go deeper. I began to think about that, and I love trees, but there was something kept on ringing in my mind. In stages of life, that that there are that there are times that, and I'm trying to put this very gently, there are times that we need to rid ourselves of things which will in the end hurt us if we keep them. And I don't say just things, I mean even relationships. And that's a very deep issue going on with that. And I know I'm stepping into some very deep water with that. And again, I couldn't cover it in just one talk, but it goes down to this thought I kept thinking about in nature. that it practices this idea that there are times it will cut away something that, even though it seems very precious, in order to have life, in order to retain life and to still grow. I mean, we've all heard those stories, I'm sure, of the animal caught in those awful things called trapping, which I hate. I deplore those things. Loathsome idea to trap an innocent animal. And we've heard of the animal not to be not to be just gross in this, but the animal will actually chew off part of its foot in order to go on. Now that part of it is very precious, isn't it? And I mean, but it has to choose either to live or to simply die here with that. Now that is really a deep and profound statement, and I don't mean it to go into such deep water on that, nor for anybody that's listening. But there's to lighten this up a little bit. There's a story that we were talking about, and I heard it in. I think I heard it when I was in seminary. John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, of course. I'm he and I, I'm part of the United Methodist Church. That was my ordination, um, and my background. But I heard this story when I was in seminary of John Wesley, the founder of Methodism's brother Charles, who was the hymn writer. That they would go off and they would be preaching. It was called, talking about their faith. And there was this time in life wherein that Charles came back to John, and John asked him, were there many additions to the kingdom of God? And Charles answered him, no, my brother, but many blessed subtractions. Right? And I heard that, and I remember saying to myself, even when I heard it, I think it was in seminary, I thought, many blessed subtractions. And what it was, I mean, you don't have to agree with the practice, but what he had done was he had gone into the various meetings that they were having, which is like what they called the class meetings, where they would get together for the upbuilding of their faith. They do Bible studies. He was getting rid of the troublemaker. And now I don't know who they were, but I know that there are troublemakers in groups and in life, and we know them. And I began to think about that and relate it to the tree, not to say that the leaves were something, of trouble, but there's an element of like cutting things away when they are taking away your life. They're taking away your spirit. They're not inspiring to you. They're demeaning. They're not enabling you to what I call flourish. And when the tough time comes, they draw you down even more, right? And that's what I'm thinking about in life now. How I've applied that to my own life, I mean, I that's probably numerous times, and probably the way that some listeners can apply this, and have applied it to their lives. What I want to say is that there is something very beautifully profound and heart-wrenching about it all at the same time. Because these situations of our life, even individuals or things that we've gotten ourselves into, things that we've done, decisions we've made, things we've brought into our lives, they drag us down. They are uninspiring to us. They're disinspiriting, if that's a word. And to be honest, and not to be provocative, but we've got to make a very difficult decision right now. We've got to get rid of that. We got to walk away from it, right? Or else it's going to take away our very life force, you know. And I know that that's precious. Going back to the poor animal caught in the trap, I know that hurts, and I'm not trying to play that down. And that's the hardest decision that probably you're going to make. But I want to encourage you that there is a greater purpose in that. There is something that you're recognizing in your mind and in your soul that you need to do. You already know that. It's not like I'm coming to you with some like bright idea, like, now start getting rid of things. You know that you need to. What I'm encouraging you, however this applies to your life, however it applies to my life, again, we're in the dialogue, aren't we? And I haven't worked out all of this, but this is coming to me from some sense of inspiration that it's not meaning that you have to be harsh, nasty, or that doesn't grieve your heart or makes it any easier. But in the long run, it will be better for you and your heart and your life, your situation of your life, your peace, if you
Yeah.
get rid of that. I mean, and I don't mean that like that, get rid of that, like as you just toss it out. But you need to think really, really, really deeply about this. And
Mhm.
that's what the trees in their wisdom were teaching me. I was thinking, this is a principle here.
Yeah.
So I heard the actor Tom Hardy on an interview, and he kind of went into that same thinking. You got to cut it away to have life,
Mhm.
because it's going to pull you down. You've got to cut that away. You can look up his video, and he talks about that. But the the removal of that which does not inspire, that word inspire is a beautiful word to me. So I want to kick this more into the positive and maybe put it to more of that. Did you have a something to say, my friend? Did you want to add something to that dialogue?
Well, I always can, but I
Yeah, well,
certainly
I
love,
just
I certainly love hearing the direction you go. But I had two thoughts actually. I think that for me, I've experienced this many times in my life where I struggle with cutting away things that I probably should not be involved in any longer. It's easier to sometimes cut away things or processes or even locations than it is people. Cutting away a relationship is
absolutely.
always feels a little guilt, a little struggle of I've given up or I've not allowed, the opportunity. But there are truly times in your life where you've come to the end of the opportunity or the ability to take that relationship further. And so it's just like you say, and I think of my wife who loves plants. She has plants all about, and we keep them on the back porch during the summer, bringing them in the winter. They begin to grow wild, and it's always hard for her to cut off these really healthy stems or branches. But if she does not do that, like you're saying, they become very heavy and weighted and they eventually break or cause other problems. So, for that plant to grow straight and strong and a direction that she wants it to go, it has to be pruned. And any good gardener can prune back a plant to make it healthier and better. It doesn't mean that you dislike all of the shoots and branches. It means that in order to get to where you feel your destiny is taking you, there are things you have to give up and things you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
sacrifice a bit. So those were the thoughts that came to my mind.
I appreciate that. That reminds me of that the the passage from the New Testament. Lay aside every weight.
Yes.
You're on the run for your life. I mean, not running for your life, but you're on a race. You're living, and if you have something that's holding you back or weighting you down, that you cannot run that race with excellence. You have to uh, uh, disassociate. You have to, I hate to use the word get rid of, but you've got to distance yourself away from that because
Yeah.
that's holding you. Maybe that's the key thought here. And I know when I'm teaching, I can come up with thoughts and, uh, kind of bring it around. Maybe that's the better word for this is distance rather than simply like this, just I'm going to cut that off. Because distance, if you treat it gently, I mean, you've got to be kind, in this whole process, be kind to, well, you mentioned individuals, let kindness come through here. I mean, let the best parts of you shine, the
Mm-hmm.
most excellent parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you do this not because of hatred, but because you have to. Just like go back to the animal in the forest. It's not because that this doesn't hurt. I have to go on. I have to live. I can't, I mean, I can't do it otherwise. Else I
Yes.
cannot be what I am. It's a beautiful thought. It's tragic. It's moving. And that's the reason it's so beautiful to us. Now, how that applies in life, I don't want to be the answer guy on that. And I don't say that that's not without a process, nor that's going to be just overnight. But to have that attitude, I think, or that spirit about you and try to work on it. But if it's not shining through, if it's not helping you to inspire, that beautiful word to inspiritus, spirit being life, it's to give you life, isn't it? And I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
if you're no longer giving that, other chances are, if you can't see that that's giving you life, you're not giving life to it either,
Right.
right? So, let's move on from there. I know
Yeah.
that's been said so many ways and probably much more elegantly and eloquently than what I'm trying to make it out to be, but or what I'm making it out to be. Not I'm trying to be trying to speak forth there, but there is something to that I look around with a keen thought in life, and that is something that I keep hearing over and over and over again. Not to make it any easier, but it's part of the whole movement of flourishing. You know, to give not to give this a mundane touch here, but the whole minimalist thing that we had going on and still going on to a lot of ways, that people will decorate their home minimally. We're minimalist. We're practicing minimalist lifestyles.
Yes.
It's that. It's that. We're cutting away that which is not inspiring us.
Yeah.
Now, those are objects, of course, but if you watch, there's a minimalizing to make you sharper, to make you better, to let that be freed so that you can go on and be free too. It's interesting.
It is.
It hurts when it's done to you. Actually, we've all been there. I mean, we've all been, parted. Somebody has parted with us probably. If you haven't been, you haven't lived yet. It'll happen sometime. There's something going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we all, it's like that old line. It's not an if, it's a when. And I don't mean that to like draw down on days like, whoa, it takes my joy out of it. But just know that you're going to be okay.
Yes.
You're going to be okay. Practice it in your own life. That maybe that's your sign that from the divine that guides you that it's going to be all right.
I think
It's going to
so.
be
And
okay.
I like that encouragement that you'll be all right. In fact, I think you'll be better, right? I mean, that is what Wesley said. He said they were blessed subtractions.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
there are
Yeah,
things that will, yeah, that will
yeah,
propel our lives forward in the
yes,
direction.
Yes, we're going to be okay now. We're going to
Yeah,
be all right, and they will be too. But our
absolutely.
concern is for right now. This is what we have to do, and in that way, there is something beautiful. With kind hearts, we go along. With excellent hearts, we chase that. So when we let it, when we do, when we do that, it's a necessary thing, but it's something that allows us to flourish. And I love that word as well. It's inspiring. Why would you want to be inspired? So that you can flourish, so
Hmm.
that you can, I don't know, have better days, have beautiful days, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
isn't that what we're trying to do?
Yes.
So sharpen it up, cut it away. Let's make this happen. And that's what the trees were teaching me. Hard lesson. Doesn't nature always give us like those like wow?
Yeah.
As the lone hawk, as the hawks, I start to say lone hawk because that's kind of a theme of ours. Um, but as the hawks always rem- remind us, I've often heard when you hear the hawk cry, he's telling you, watch, watch,
Yes.
watch out. There's something coming on, and you need to be aware of it. So be alert, be alert. Watch what's going on here, and you can see it coming up in your life, and so it will be um, you will be inspired and flourish from that.
I think that's wonderful. What a great thought. Thank you for sharing that with us because
Well,
of,
I appreciate that. Thank you for the thank everybody for the time of
yeah.
listening to that. But thank the trees.
Yes.
Thank the trees for that one.
Yes. Yes.
That's one that I was thinking about, and it seems like when nature speaks, it's that beautiful idea, the language of the trees. Isn't it a
Yes.
lovely idea? Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Nature is a beautiful thing, and it's also obviously wild and violent and destructive sometimes. But all of those things are the way life can be, and
It is. It is.
we can learn those things together.
It's beautiful in its tragedy.
Yeah.
That's what people. I think I've come to see that the wild is not. The wild can be, it's part of the what we share, on the website. The
Yes.
wonder, wisdom, and the wild. Uh, Wonder, of course, is that inspirational part, which we've explained a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago. Wisdom, of course, is the philosophy of it, the knowledge, the education of it. But the wild is where it's almost where we find ourselves on the ground living, because that is us. I
Hmm.
mean, life is like that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't take away from its beauty. It has that robustness to it, and we're part of that. It's a vibrancy. It just gives you a sense of life, and I think um, in the dialogue form, that's part of the dialogue, isn't it? Isn't that the beautiful ways that those are coming together to be inspirational? So
Yes.
yeah, it's a beautiful thought.
Love that.
Yeah,
If
thanks again to the trees.
Absolutely. Thanks to the trees. If you're watching or listening to the podcast or the video today, and maybe you've gone through some of the things we've talked about today about those subtractions in your life, you've had to deal with some loss or some pruning in your life. We'd love to hear your story. Love to hear about how that's or your feedback about our thoughts today. We invite you into the dialogue. We invite you into the conversation to share with us. You can leave comments, of course, anywhere you see this posted. You're welcome to share with us on social media or to reach out to us in any way possible. But the Darren Newman dialogues are here for all to be involved. You're very welcome to be a part of this conversation, and I hope you'll do so. Any final thoughts, Dr. Newman, as we wrap up today?
I appreciate that, BG. My friend, I was thinking of a line um, from a great poem, and I actually had to get it out, and I brought it into um, from this beautiful book that some friends of mine at the church in Britain gave to me several years ago after I left. And it's it's a poem called the Falcon to the Falconer. Um, and it was found in this book, and I'm going to put on my glasses just to read this, by Jonathan Steffen. And it has this last line. It says, "All darkness on your hand, I'm hooded, I'm pinned, and I'm held by you. Oh, give me back my wings, that they may bring me back to you." Oh, give me back my wings, that they may bring me back to you. I thought about that. Isn't it that freedom is what we yearn for? And when we have it, it helps us to bring about the great return of life. And there's something about that in giving freedom to those which we part from, and giving freedom to ourselves that we may return to ourselves. Oh, give me back my wings, that I may come back to you. It's almost like our soul's yearning. Give me back my wings again. So it's part of the freedom thing that we're about. So it's all hooked together. It's all part of the dialogue. I know that sounds kind of like there's so much more there, and there is, but it's a parting to be free again. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So be encouraged by that. You're not parting in order to diminish your life. You're parting in order to have freedom again, that you can return to yourself, return to your path of excellence, and return to the greatness that you are called to.
Fantastic. Dr. Newman, thank you again for
Hey,
those
thank you. Thank you
wonderful
for the
thoughts
time.
and for sharing that. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next time for the Darren Newman Dialogues.